Today, our wonderful guest speaker is serial entrepreneur and online educator, Charlie Chang. Charlie is a serial entrepreneur and online educator and content creator with 874,000 subscribers as of today, January. Oh, and that's not today. Apologize. Charlie also graduated from UCLA as a pre-med student, but initially began some side hustles before establishing multiple income streams and now making 6 figures a month. Charlie also has been seen on CNBC, Business Insider, ABC, and Vogue Business. So now, as a general outline for the seminar, we are first going to have a 30-minute or so interview with our guest speaker, Charlie, and then have an audience Q&A session. So let's go ahead and get into the main portion of today's seminar. And please help me welcome our honored guest speaker, Charlie Chang. So Charlie, can you please introduce yourself to the people in the audience?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and to talk to you guys all.
Yeah, thank you. So now just for a quick guideline for today's interview. Thank you so much, Charlie. Just before we begin, just so our audience members can get a bit of context for today's interview, can you go ahead and give us like an abridged version of your life story and how you got to where you are now?
Sure. So I grew up in Palo Alto, California, so NorCal, and I went to UCLA and I studied psychobiology. And my original plan was to, become a doctor. And after I graduated college, I went through the whole process of applying to med schools, didn't get in. And then I told myself, I'm just gonna work for myself and try and make it on my own. So that's basically what I did. I just did a ton of different side hustles. I was doing pretty much everything, photography, video, tutoring, print modeling, everything. And that eventually led me to where I am today, which is basically, I do online education, making content on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, as well as I have courses and a bunch of other things.
Yeah, I personally found that story very, very interesting and pretty compelling, just because a lot of us are teenagers listening in, and this is more of a non-conventional path, but it definitely paid off, is what I can tell. So yeah, I just want to get into a little bit of that, just because as Gen Z career seminars, we always go through a quick process of what is your field of work, some specific questions about you. So just starting off with a couple of questions about your field of work, and then I'll pass on the baton to Lily.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. So how would you classify the field of work that you work in? And can you explain some of the basics of essentially what you do?
Yeah, so I basically, I consider myself, like you guys said, an online educator. I make content about a wide range of things, from personal finance to entrepreneurship to investing. And my whole business model is we make content teaching people things, or going out and interviewing people, basically getting knowledge from other people or from myself and sharing it with my audience. So that's basically what I've been doing, I think full-time for almost the last 3 years.
Wow. Yeah. So I think that's a really interesting path to go on. I feel like it covers a lot of ground, doesn't it? Because there is a lot of stuff that you do, is what I've read and now I'm hearing. So my path was my path to get here was a lot of trial and error. I failed a lot of times. But yeah, eventually I think I found something that I'm pretty decent at and that I'm pretty passionate about. So my whole big thing is I think a lot of people, they're in a situation that I was in before, where either your parents or society or whoever is telling you should go out and do some particular career, right? And you might not be that passionate about it, or you may, who knows? But my whole thing is I want to inspire people to be able to think hey, I can do a non-traditional career. I can go out there and build my own streams of income or do other things besides a very good 9-to-5 job or career path. And yeah, that's the whole goal. Yeah, and I feel in retrospect, that does seem like it was a little bit of a treacherous path. So I did want to kind of talk to you a little bit about that.
Sure.
Just starting off, I suppose, when you were going through that kind of trial and error process, did you go places or like talk to people initially to get help with your work, or did you try and make it out all on your own?
So I've always been really into learning online. I used to learn a lot of things on online forums, and also watching YouTube videos. So pretty much all of my businesses that I've done the research phase online, and then I've just sort of gone out and tried to do it without like that much preparation. I think that's both good and bad. It's good because it's like taking action fast, which I think a lot of people don't do, but it's also bad because I didn't have that many people I could like look up to or learn from like in person. And that definitely doesn't make things a lot easier if you have like people to look up to that can inspire you to like do a certain job or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I also wanted to just know like what exactly made you to like decide to take that sort of direction? Because I feel like after pre-med, there were quite a few directions that you could have taken. Why was it specifically this that you chose?
I've always been really into like making content. I started doing video production in 7th grade. So I was like 13 years old. And after that, I got into photography. And so, yeah, I've always been like a pretty creative person. And basically after I graduated college, right, like I was doing a bunch of different things, and tutoring students was one of them. So I did that for at least a few years, and I realized like, okay, I'm pretty good at like teaching different things to my students. And that paired with like my more creative side, I guess, like with making content, making films and photography, that was like perfect for what I do right now. And eventually, like it all sort of stemmed from like me being super frugal. It's basically like the way I was raised. We were very frugal, and as a result, I think like I cared about, you know, like different ways to make money, different ways to save money, different ways to invest money, stuff like that. And that really sparked my passion for personal finance, like credit cards, traveling with points for free, all that stuff. So I just started posting it online to my friends, not really thinking that it could be like a career or anything. And yeah, I just kept at that for a few years, and then eventually it started to pick up.
Yeah, and I can see that this is kind of like a linear progression of like one leading to another and then slowly kind of like blossoming out, right? So I suppose that kind of does stray from the purpose of like, you know, trying to specify a specific field, because from that I'm assuming then entrepreneurship isn't just one thing, right? It can like branch out into all types of things because entrepreneurship kind of falls under everything, right?
Yeah, you never know with entrepreneurship. Like the journey it could be simple, right? You could start one business that you just do for the rest of your life, or more likely, probably you'll do one thing, learn a skill from that, move to something else, learn another skill from that, fail at something, learn a bunch of lessons, and then just like keep going down that path until you find something that works. And I don't think I'm going to do content for the rest of my life, right? This is just like one stepping stone. And I hopefully can learn or take the things I learned from this type of business and apply it to whatever I do next.
Okay, perfect. And I guess that kind of wraps it up for the specific field of work. I'm going to go ahead and like pass this all off to Lily. So Lily, you can take over.
Awesome. Thanks, David. And thank you, Charlie. It's really nice to be able to have you here with us in the seminar and kind of learn from your experiences and the own lessons like you've taken from your own life. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this. So specifically regarding being self-employed, it's definitely a very different career path because it entails a bunch of different responsibilities and skills. So one thing that we were both curious about is when you're self-employed, how do you manage your time? For example, what takes up the most time? How do you balance all the different aspects to this type of job?
Yeah, that's definitely one thing with like doing your own business and entrepreneurship is you don't have someone that's, you know, like looking over your shoulder telling you, hey, I need this by this time, right? So that's a good thing and also a bad thing. And that's why it's super important to sort of like build out productivity systems to help make it so that you actually get stuff done. Otherwise, I think most people would just like hang out and, like do things that are fun versus doing things that are not fun right now, but will help you in the future. So yeah, I practice like I do a lot of self-improvement things in my life. I have my morning routine, which is basically like, I usually wake up pretty early, like around 5:30 a.m. And then I do this whole thing where it's like, I read, I journal, I meditate, and then I'll usually do some like deep work after that, and then maybe hit the gym after that. So like I try and get a lot of things done early in the morning. That way it just gives me a lot of momentum for the rest of the day. And I can sort of like take that momentum and like use it to fuel my productivity for the entire day.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like a really valuable piece of advice because I've been trying to wake up earlier on the weekends, especially. I used to be someone who slept in, but being able to wake up early and kind of like knock things off your to-do list in the morning, I think that's definitely something that like works really well for a lot of people. And I think that's something that like all of our listeners today can also learn from.
Yeah.
So
I recommend just like trying it out because I've never been a morning person.
Oh yeah.
Like I used to wake up like pretty late, like 10 a.m., sometimes even like 11 a.m. But I just found that like switching things up allows you to get in this like new environment, and it allows you to like incorporate new things that you probably wouldn't have done before. So if you guys don't wake up early, try it, right? Like you might not like it. It might not be right for you, but you might as well just try it. And if not, that's totally fine. Like you don't need to wake up early to be like successful or anything like that.
Yeah. And kind of what you were mentioning about how like you have to challenge yourself to wake up early because many people like me are also not morning people. I was also curious about what like the biggest challenges were for you during this process.
Like in terms of like being able to force myself to wake up early?
Or being self-employed in general.
Oh, some of the biggest challenges. Yeah, it's a lot of learning. So you basically need to learn a lot of stuff that you wouldn't need to know if you just had like a normal job. Like you need to learn, at least for me, like I care about taxes a lot, so tax strategy. You have to learn like how to do your bookkeeping, how to build a team, there's just like so many different things, and it really depends on what type of business you're getting into. But you just sort of have to like go into it expecting I need to pretty much be a student for like the rest of my life. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. So where did you go to learn these things? Because I know it's hard to find resources sometimes.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of reading on forums. So I actually learn a lot online too. And that's sort of how I think I came to have the idea of, hey, I can put out content as well. I also followed different entrepreneurs on social media, like Instagram. And for some reason, like they really inspired me because they were living the life that's, I want for myself. And so I always tell people like, it's hard to get a mentor to like personally teach you things, right? Because a lot of these people don't have time. But if you can like follow them on Instagram and see like their day-to-day life through their stories and things like that, that's like a great like pseudo mentorship. So I did that for a while, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and create content myself.
Awesome. So I know you mentioned that your journey of being self-employed has kind of had multiple facets. So you don't just do content creation on YouTube, but you also do Instagram and other social medias. But I was curious specifically about your YouTube channel because I know you reach a lot of people through there. And I was wondering what you think the biggest thing you've learned from starting the YouTube channel was.
It's probably, there's a couple of things. I think the first one's like getting out of my comfort zone I'm very shy. I don't know if you guys can tell, but like I'm not a public speaker I get very nervous. And so like the whole thought about filming myself and putting it out to the internet so that like a lot of people can see it, super weird to me, right? But I had that passion for like, I was so passionate about personal finance, and like I thought so many people could like gain some knowledge from it or get inspired by it, right? So I just was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get out of my comfort zone and film myself. So I think one of the big things I learned was like all good things happen when you leave your comfort zone. I don't think I can really think of many times where I got out of my comfort zone and I regret it after. Like most of the good things that have happened in my life are because I got out of that zone and I took sort of like a risk and did something that I wouldn't call comfortable. And then the second thing is just learning about like the power of the internet and how much scale there is. So for my business model, right, it's like I'm not helping a few people a ton, right? Like I'm not like I'm not like a teacher in a classroom where I like can really change the lives of, let's say, 20 people. For me, it's like I can change the lives of, or not change lives, I can like impact a lot of people a little bit, and that's really like that's like the leverage of the internet. That's what really allows people that are online to, you know, like have a higher income. It's because they can just reach so many more people than anything in person ever could. So just the power of like internet. And if I were to start any type of business today, it would be something with the internet.
Yeah, I think what you said about getting out of your comfort zone especially resonated with me, and I'm sure resonates with a lot of people who are listening too. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk a little bit more of that, like what the process of getting out of your comfort zone was like, how it felt, and like what really helped you to get through it, because I know it can be like scary and challenging too.
Yeah. For me, I've just never been that scared of failure. So I think that's like definitely an advantage if you're sort of like born with that. But you can also like sort of gaslight yourself into thinking like, hey, this won't be that bad, right? I think a lot of people like they overthink, and I certainly do. But when you overthink, you start to think about like all the bad things that could happen or what could go wrong. You just need to sort of like not do that. I know I'm making it sound like it's easy when it's not, but I don't think there's like a really good answer on how to do that. I certainly think like the more you push yourself, the more times you get out of your comfort zone, maybe do something like not that out of your comfort zone, right? And then you move to something a little bit harder and harder and harder. That can be a good way to slowly ease into it. But you also just need to like get inspired and have confidence that what you're doing could turn out really awesome. And I think for that, it's like find people that inspire you, look at their lives or look what they're doing, and then see like, hey, they did that. Like if they can sort of do that, then I can also do that as well. It's like very cliche, but something like that.
Yeah, I think really also like your sense of self and your confidence, like you were talking about, is what really, it does impact you a lot in your ability to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So like, do you think that your identity or kind of the way that like you see yourself has changed throughout this process?
Sort of. I am more confident now than I was before. But a lot of that was like I made that confidence by basically like saying I'm gonna do something and then doing it.
Right.
I don't think I'm born with like that much, like I don't have alpha energy. I don't think like I'm the man, you know. In fact, like I was pretty not confident, I think, growing up. But if you just give yourself a lot of different things to do and you actually do them. So like, for example, the morning routine, right? Like if you wake up and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do these 4 or 5 different things, and you do it. Then after that, you get this sense of like accomplishment where it's like, okay, I said I was gonna do that, I did it. That sort of builds self-confidence, at least for me.
Yeah, and I guess that sense of like accomplishment would also make you feel more confident about yourself too.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned that in the future, you don't see yourself making content for like forever and ever. So I was wondering, have you considered other like types of entrepreneurship, maybe more conventional or even more non-conventional types of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, definitely. I know that within the next 5-10 years, like my channel is gonna die. And it's just, like there's just different like cycles when it comes to creators. And there's very, very few creators that can stay super relevant for a long time. So I mean the whole plan is like build a business that doesn't necessarily involve my face over the next few years. And then that should be what holds like creates income for like a few years after that. And while I'm doing that, I'll always constantly be looking for different opportunities and like businesses to start. So I do have like, I don't have an exact game plan, but I know that I'm literally always like brainstorming, and there's going to be things that, come up when I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. That's my next business.
Yeah, I think especially with like a YouTube channel, since like the demand for content changes a lot, and like I'm sure like all of us have had like our favorite YouTube creator, and then like one day we like don't really watch them anymore. So I'm wondering how that kind of impacts like the way that you shape your career, that like volatility or like not uncertainty, but like the way that like the demand for content changes.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a little scary. So I never feel super like okay, I got made for the rest of my life, right? Like everything could change pretty fast. And I think I'm glad I have that sort of outlook, because it makes me like stay in my comfort zone all the time, or like okay, I can just keep doing this exact same thing forever and I'll be set right now. With my content, it's like I'm always shifting, so I'm always looking for different trends and sort of hopping on those trends. And I'm also just I realize like this is a very lucky thing that I'm able to do right now, and doing it requires a lot of luck. And so like more, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, yeah, this won't last forever. And as a result, it's always important to sort of like be on the lookout for new things and be constantly testing new things to see what works.
And I almost think that like requires you to be super creative, right? Because you have to be like adapting so much. So like, what can you say about like the creative process? Because I know that's something that definitely a lot of people like me struggle with. Like I have writer's block, artist block, all of these things.
Yeah, I have, so when I watch content, which I watch a good amount of content, I don't watch it to get entertained. I watch it with like I watch it while thinking about how this content I'm watching right now could be used in my own content, or like how I can take similar concepts and make it my own, right? So I think that fuels a lot of my creativity. I also spend a lot of time brainstorming and like trying to think of different concepts. And I think a lot of it comes to like seeing what other people are doing, seeing what's working, and putting my own spin on it. So I'll probably spend like 30 minutes a day just browsing the YouTube homepage and seeing what other people are doing. And that gives me a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, definitely like taking inspiration from others. So I guess that leads me to wonder like, what's been your biggest inspiration in this process?
My biggest inspiration?
Yeah.
Man, that's tough. I don't really know. I think just the desired, inspiration. I haven't seen that many like Asian people, at least when I was growing up, which is like I'm much older than you guys. But like there weren't that many Asian people in movies or like other platforms. So I think I've always had this thing where it's like I want there to be more Asian representation in media. And I think that was like a big fueling motivator for me, where it's like, I live in Los Angeles. Like I'm literally in the exact right spot for this. That's why I started to do like commercial acting and print modeling and stuff. I was like, I want there to be more Asian faces, right? And I think that also sort of like subconsciously made me be like, okay, I can also do YouTube. I can do things where it's my face, like an Asian face. So I think I want to like inspire other Asian people to know that like there's people out there that look like them that can do pretty cool things.
Yeah, I think that's definitely really great. I mean, I also like, even though I was born in like what we would call like a more progressive time, like we still don't see that much representation, especially on things like, I don't know, YouTube, where a lot of it is still dominated by like other races. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk about how your identity as being like an Asian American has impacted you during this process.
I think I used to like not be very happy that I was Asian. I don't know why, like I wasn't confident in myself, or like I wasn't proud to be Asian. And I think throughout the last 10 years, I've really like matured and gone to realize like Asian people are dope, right? Like,
yeah,
Asian people have such like, I'm really proud of like Asian people. So I think that's been a good change in my perception of Asians. Sorry, did I answer your question?
yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think it's also a lot of like things that like Asian kids my age still struggle with, that sense of like, being Asian, and you hear some people who like really, really love you, and then there's other people who, are really, really against you. And it's definitely like a lot of feedback you're getting just based off of like your race. So I think that's definitely something that like all Asian kids can take, because I think like it's an inevitable part of like maturing as an Asian kid, like going through this part of like accepting your heritage and stuff.
100%,
Yeah. So you also mentioned, I think you have like a medical background, right?
Yeah, I studied pre-med, so I was originally going to go to med school, or my parents wanted me to. I don't know how much they wanted me to, but they like definitely pushed for it. So that's why I sort of chose that major in college. I didn't really think that I could do anything else. And that leads me to like another thing where it's like, don't just do something because you're good at it, right? Like I was good at science and math and stuff like that. So that's why I just sort of did that. I didn't even think that you could major in business or other things. And while you can be good at something, doesn't necessarily mean you want to do it for the rest of your life, or you're like that passionate. So I think that's sort of what happened with like the whole med school route for me. I just did it because it seemed normal, it seemed good, it was like a prestigious career, and I didn't really listen to me. Like I wasn't confident enough in myself to be like, hey, I don't actually want to do this, and I want to explore other things.
So even though like I guess it wasn't directly related to the career path you're taking now, do you still think that it was valuable, or is it something if you could go back you would change?
I think there's value in everything you do. Personally, there's a lot of Asian people here, so they might disagree, but like at least for me, I don't think I got that much value from college. It's also, I made this whole video about it, but one big reason is because I didn't do it correctly. Like I feel like there's so many different things I could have done while in college that would have made the experience a lot better. But man, I mean, what was the question?
Yeah, so if you could go back and like talk to yourself, be like, hey, don't go to pre-med, like, do you think that's something you would do?
Yes and no. I think you can, like for me, I think I definitely did learn some things from pre-med, like study hard, right? Like it takes a lot of like, what's it called? Like hard work and persistence and like self-control to study stuff like that. So I think I definitely learned a lot of good like habits from it. But in terms of like what I do right now, and this is just my case, it didn't really like add much to what I do right now. If I had just gotten started way earlier, like by doing side hustles in college more and like actually pursuing entrepreneurship, I would probably be like well ahead of where I am right now.
Yeah, so I guess there's like pros and cons to both. But in the past few years, would you say that you've personally changed throughout like your time developing your business and like getting
Sorry,
into
can you ask
self-employment?
that one more time?
Yeah, of course. So in the past few years, how would you say that you've like changed as you learn more about business, as like your business develops?
It's making me more bullish about business. So like bullish, like I'm a big believer in entrepreneurship and doing your own thing. I think I was a believer before, but now I'm even more so. I think like it just really depends on the type of life you want to live, right? And the main thing, not being like money or anything, because like entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily mean you make a lot of money. It's more about like doing things that you want and more on your schedule. So I think that was a very big priority for me. And yeah, I like can't really see myself going somewhere for like 8 or 9 hours a day and then coming back and then doing it over again. I much prefer like the wild ride of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think I don't know if this is the right phrase for it, but like that entrepreneurial mindset where like you're willing to take risks for like the sense of like freedom you have and control over your own personal like schedule and stuff like that. So I was wondering like, because a lot of people are afraid of the risk. How are you able to get rid of that fear of like failure and fear of risk?
Well, I just
Or I know you mentioned you don't really have like a fear of failure, but
I just
do you
thought
have
like
any
the
advice to
risk
that
of
people?
not doing what I want with this one life I have was like too big. Like I can't, if there's something I want to do and I only have this one life to do it, then I might as well do it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's
Yeah.
just sort of what goes on through my head.
Yeah, it's like YOLO, you only live once, so you might as well go big or go home. I also was wondering for entrepreneurship, do you have any tips for how to kind of like get your business started? I know it's a very like broad subject, but maybe like the one biggest thing you've learned or like the one biggest piece of advice.
It's a good question. I would say everyone should start off with, if they want to get into entrepreneurship, they should learn a high value skill and then just do that skill as a service for other people. That's basically like the first things I did. Like, for example, photography is a high value skill. And this is a great way to get into entrepreneurship because you're not investing a ton of money or time building like this big business that might not do well, right? This is more like you're trading your time for money, which is totally fine at the start. And it's like all these different little ladders or steps you take. Basically like do one service for clients, do another service for clients, learn along the way. And all those skills you learn by doing that service will help you in whatever else you build in the future. So yeah, I think like anyone that's young, just like do some type of service as a business because it's a lot less risky and it's immediate cash flow, right? Like if you do the service for an hour, you're going to get paid for an hour. And then you can use that money and learn or buy equipment or something, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So like developing those skill sets. And one last question before I pass it back to David. This is kind of a question that I've been really curious about. I'm also super into like filming, video editing, content creation. So I was wondering, do you have any advice for other people who are looking to get into content creation, or content creation in the sense of like YouTube or other social medias?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so if I were starting from zero right now and I wanted to do content, I would basically start making a lot of short form content on TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. And the beauty of that is because you can make one piece of content and then repost it onto all the different platforms, right? And short form content is also a lot easier. It can allow you to use your creativity a lot, and do that in some type of niche that you are very passionate about. Offer value to your audience, like in any way. So it can be by entertaining them, it can be by giving them information, stuff like that. And then from there, move on to long form content like YouTube, like 5-minute plus videos, right? That's where you really build a like loyal audience. And then I think that's like all you need to plan for now, because there'll be so many things that happen along the journey that you'll like maybe pivot a little bit, or you'll do this more since it's working well. And just do that for a long time, because content takes a long time to pick up. Like,
Yeah.
I did YouTube from 2008 until 2017, doing like music covers, and I only got like 1,000 subscribers. And then I basically turned that channel into my current personal finance channel. Like I literally just changed the name and like privated all the old videos. And then I started doing this stuff, and it took me like 2 or 3 years to gain 1,000 followers again. And then after that, it just became like parabolic or exponential. So I think you need to like grind through the slow growth, because everyone, unless you get super, super lucky, is going to go through that really, really painful slow growth.
Right.
But at some point you'll hit like a point where you get one viral video and then it sort of like takes off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charlie. Definitely learned a lot. And a lot of takeaways too, even from like waking up early to putting yourself out there. So I'm going to pass it back to David now. I think he has just a few more questions for you before we get into the audience Q&A.
Cool.
Yeah, and I guess going on that tangent of having us all learn stuff, I mean, this is like titled Gen Z Career Exploration, right? So this is essentially how we're trying to get teenagers involved. And well, I suppose Gen Z also encompasses more than just teenagers, but just like a lot of people who are like aspiring to do things that are in like the certain area that you are in, to kind of get to that. So these are just a couple questions to talk about some things that we can do now in order to, I suppose, prepare for trying to get into that entrepreneurial space. So first question is like, if a teenager or I suppose anyone in Gen Z wanted to get started and begin a business or just go into the entrepreneurial space, what advice first and foremost would you give them?
It just fall back onto what I said earlier about like finding that high value skill and then doing it for clients. I think that's how I got started with entrepreneurship. And I think that's like is it hard to hear me?
I can hear you just fine. I don't know.
Yeah, your audio quality is quite crisp, actually.
Okay. Sorry if you guys can't hear me. I see some people saying they can't.
I saw two. I don't know. But
Yeah.
it sounds totally fine.
But yeah, no, like my advice would be, do the pick a high value skill that you already have, or go out and learn one, and then find clients, and don't overthink it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's also like this mental thing where a lot of us are a little scared to go into the entrepreneurial space just because there is quite a bit of risk involved in that. And I think it was it Amazon FBA that you started first?
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, so I just wanted to know, with that kind of risk involved, because I know you've also done quite a bit of entrepreneurial like things. What are some mistakes or failures that you have done along your path to creating a successful online business? And then what are some of the key lessons that you learned from some of those?
That's a good question. Yeah, I've had so many. Okay, so with Amazon FBA, actually that wasn't really a failure. My biggest failure in business, I think I lost like $20-something thousand, and like that's a lot of money, especially for me at that time. I basically started up a clothing brand called Charge Athletics. It's like athleisure company, and I went super hard at like designing the clothes, sourcing them. Like I even flew to the factories in Asia to like visit them and like do all that stuff. And then I bought a lot of inventory, but then I didn't do any marketing. So I think at that time I was just like, oh yeah, if I make good clothes and take some good pictures, like people will buy. But like that's not the case. So I still have like boxes and boxes of clothes at my storage unit, all unsold. But yeah, the big lesson from that was like marketing is super, super important. And for people that are shy, I think marketing is a little bit hard since it's not like in their comfort zone. But after that business, I was like, okay, building a good product is only like half the battle. The other half is telling people so that they know that you have that good product, right? So after that, marketing has always been like a very big thing for anything I do. Yeah, that's one of them. I've started so many, like I've started drop shipping businesses. I started a business that basically it was called Revenge by Package, and people could pay money to have this fake package delivered to their friends or whoever, and on that package there'd be like something super embarrassing on it. I ran Facebook ads to that. I lost money, so I stopped doing it. I've also like tried to do so many different, like if you guys look at how many domains I've bought in the past, and also the number of Facebook pages I've made and websites I've built, it's like in the multiple dozens. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And then I guess that does go along with that serial entrepreneur title, right? So yeah, no, because now I also know that with marketing, that is kind of the entire purpose of then content creation, right? Because then it also gets a lot of content out there for people so that they're able to do that. And then actually, you know what? Why don't I just bank off of a question in the chat? Like, I also wanted to like know a little bit about your income streams. Like, where does a lot of the money come from in like your case?
Yeah, so for a content business like mine, if you guys follow me on Instagram, every single month I do this like income breakdown where I talk about like exactly how much I made and from what different like sources, and I like break it down by percentage, and I also do like a little recap of like the lessons I learned and the things we're doing. But for my business, it's like with YouTube, it's like you get paid through AdSense. So those are the ads that are shown on the videos. You get paid from sponsorships. So that's basically when I talk about like a product for like a minute in the middle of my video. You get paid. I do a lot of affiliate marketing. So that's basically when I have links in the description on my main channel, my other channel, as well as like my websites. And when people click on those links and they sign up or whatever, we get like a small commission. So those are like the three main ones. I also have like 2 courses that make a very, very small amount of money per month. I do some coaching. I've offered like workout with Charlie, like consulting stuff where we basically hit the gym for like 3-4 hours and they pay me for that. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess that one did take a little skew off of the line, but I think that definitely did provide. Yeah, no, that's great. So yeah, coming back to I guess the topic of like teenagers, a lot of the time I feel like the culture now with teenagers is to try and like prepare as much as possible for the future. And I'm not trying to buy into that culture, but this question kind of does, like, what can a teenager do now to develop the types of skills necessary, whether that be like soft skills, I guess, or just like finding, I suppose, the network, things like that. Like, what can teenagers do to do well in entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I don't know if everyone agrees with this, but I'm very big on being a generalist. So I like to learn a lot of different skills but not be like super good at any of them. And I think that is super important because when you do that, you're basically exploring all the different things you can do in the world, like all this different knowledge or skills or whatever. You get a taste of all of them and you get really well-rounded. And from that, you can basically, like, with that lens, it's like having these glasses on where like you can sort of see opportunities better than other people. And if you spot something, then you can sort of hone in on that and then get really good at that one thing. So I would just say, like, learn a lot of skills and be super curious about everything and just like, do everything.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie, I am quite a generalist, so that does give me quite a bit of hope for just going forward.
Nice.
But yeah, that's great. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and ask one final question because I know it is getting a little bit late, and I can see there are quite a few questions in the chat. So okay, so just last one. What do you think is the most enjoyable part of being an entrepreneur?
I really like, there's so many good things. Oh man, I don't know. I think for me, it really suits the lifestyle I want. And I know, like, not a lot of people, not everyone's gonna enjoy it, right? But for me, I really like this type of lifestyle. I like the risk and like it's not stable, right? Like things can go wrong or like putting out fires. You don't really know when you might make your next dollar or something like that. I think that's really exciting for me. And I think that's really why I enjoy it so much.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that is true. I feel like I would love to be an entrepreneur, but I know other people don't share that same sentiment. But yeah, thank you so much for answering our questions. Yeah, this has been a really educational interview. I'm just so thankful that you were able to be here and answer all of our questions. So yeah. Let's go ahead and move. Okay, and I'm seeing more questions. Let's go ahead and move it over to the audience Q&A. I'm gonna have Lily take over this. So yeah. Oh yeah, more. Great.
Awesome. So Charlie, usually after seminars, we have approximately a 30-minute Q&A session, but I know this session has gone really long already, and I know you're very busy. So if at any point in time, like you have another commitment or you have to go, it's totally fine. But right now,
I can do like 20 minutes, I think.
Awesome.
15
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe until like 10:15.
Yeah, that should be good. Yeah.
Awesome. So to all of our audience members, if you have any questions for Charlie, put them in the chat box, and then we will do our best to answer them. Okay, so somebody asked, how do you promote your YouTube channel?
How to promote it? Oh, TikTok. Well, when I first started, I promoted it using TikTok. So that's what I was saying, like doing the short form content is very important. You can sort of use that to get a lot of eyeballs and then funnel people over to your YouTube channel where you actually provide some more like real value instead of like, those short little videos that can't really say too much.
Yeah.
So that's like, it's all organic. Like you don't pay for ads for YouTube. I guess maybe you can, but all my growth has been like very organic.
And somebody else asked, what is your day-to-day life like? Is it a lot of free time, or is it how much like stress there is?
Right now, I have like a pretty big team of people, so it's a little stressful to manage people, which is something I found out pretty recently. I've always been like more of like a solo person, but now I realize I can't do everything by myself. And a book I recommend reading, especially if you're just like I was, is Who Not How. I forget the author, but it basically just tells you the importance of building good teams and like not trying to do everything yourself, because that's exactly what I was trying to do before. But wait, my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every day is different. I'll wake up early. I usually gym in the morning. And then yeah, I work, I guess, most of the day. And usually I'll stop around 4 or 5, and then after dinner I'll probably check my computer some more, but it really depends on the day.
Yeah, so I guess like a lot of flexibility, like what you were talking about before with being self-employed. So I think that's like a benefit for some people, and then maybe it might not be for everybody. But
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a really interesting aspect. So earlier you also talked about finding clients. So what's like the process of how to market yourself and how to find clients?
I can tell you guys how I found my clients. For photography, it was like people I went to school with. Like I'd offer people free shoots, and then word would get out that I do photography and video, right? Tutoring, Craigslist was like how I found my first clients, and that sort of turned into like word of mouth. I think a lot of people think Craigslist is like too sketchy, or like you won't find any real clients on there, but at least for me, I found my best clients on Craigslist for tutoring. I think it's like, it comes down to using your network, and then there's so many different ways to like get clients now. Like that wasn't so much the case before when I was doing it. Social media is a great way. You can make content about your expertise, and people will contact you. So
Yeah, definitely. So someone else asked, you mentioned your parents wanted you to be a doctor. Did they give you any pressure when you were exploring different options? So I guess I'll kind of rephrase this question. Can you describe the process of like discovering what you wanted to do for yourself instead of like what other people's expectations were for you?
yeah, for me, it was tough because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I made the decision not to go to med school, not to like further apply again and stuff. So yeah, it was very tough for my parents, but I basically told them like, I'm just gonna do my own thing and try different things until things work. And that's like super, if I were a parent and my kid told me that, I'd be like, oh no, like I'm super scared, right? But yeah, if you, not everyone's gonna have the privilege of knowing exactly what they want to do when they tell their parents like, I want to do my own thing, right? So if you don't, then just know that it's gonna be kind of awkward for a little bit. It was definitely awkward for me and my parents for a bit. But as long as you're like always consistently, like not necessarily making progress, but putting in effort, then I feel like they should see that and it should be fun. But it also depends on your parents. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have kind of an interesting question. So do you consider yourself an influencer? And if not, would you ever consider moving more towards the direction of like monetizing your personality versus like content focused?
I don't have like a super interesting personality, so I don't think I could do that well with like entertainment stuff, right? So I knew that going into it, but I knew that some value that I could provide was just like information, and that's why I chose to go that route. So I don't think I'd ever be like entertainer. I think I'm always going to be like more on the education side of things.
Yeah. And earlier you also were kind of talking about how like, you know, that like the career in like content creation is a short-term one, like doesn't last forever. So I guess you would also have some knowledge in terms of like the general trends for content creators. Like, what does that look like going into the future?
There's a lot of stuff with AI right now. So I think content's going to become a lot easier for a lot of people to make. And that's, I think, that can definitely change up the space quite a bit. I think more than ever, it's like really important to have an interesting like character or personal brand, because that's what really separates yourself from other people. I see YouTube Shorts getting really, really big this year. Like they're opening up the YouTube Shorts fund, and like I think people are starting to migrate from TikTok to YouTube Shorts. Let's see, types of content that do. Something I've been doing a lot recently is incorporating other people into my content. So I was like, I can't just talk to a camera for the rest of my YouTube career, right? Like I need to start incorporating the opinions and knowledge of other people. So that's sort of why I started interviewing other people. Street interviews do well, asking people that are strangers different things. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's just some of the things I can think of right now.
Yeah, I think definitely like YouTube Shorts and like Instagram Reels, even like my friends and I were talking about it, we like call it like the better version of TikTok. Because like honestly, like I think that's what it is. Like they take the best content from TikTok and then they put that on like Instagram and like YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that actually.
Yeah. So on your YouTube channel though, so I believe you do shorts and you do like the long content too, or do you mainly focus on the longer content?
My main channel is mainly the long form content, but we do post like one short per day on my other one of my other channels.
Okay, so like what type of things do you talk about on your YouTube channel is what someone in the chat box was wondering.
On my main channel, it's like a lot of, it's everywhere pretty much. But it's all, everything I talk about sort of relates to money in some way. So like entrepreneurship, like building side hustles, building businesses, investing, saving money, making more money, mindset stuff like self-improvement, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think this is a good time, Charlie, if you want to plug your socials in case people are interested in checking them out, like your YouTube, your Instagram.
Sure. Yeah. If you search up Charlie Chang, Chang on YouTube, my channel should pop up. I think same thing if you search that on Instagram and TikTok. Yeah.
Awesome. So everybody could definitely go check those out. Definitely very educational, I would say, like space where you can find like a plethora of information. Another question I see is, how did you support yourself during the first several years, you know, when you were mentioning your YouTube hadn't hit that like increase in growth yet?
Yeah, service-based businesses. So like high value skill, doing it for clients. That's why I'm so big on that. That's really what got me through. Yeah.
And someone else is asking for learning resources for high schoolers interested in finance.
YouTube, like Investopedia. There are a lot of really great blogs out there. Even like forums like Quora or even Reddit. You know, I learn on Reddit too. Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah. I think like even like your whole business model and like your whole channel is like a really great example of how like now if you want to learn something, you can learn it online. Like basically anything you want to learn.
Anything you can learn online for sure.
And someone else has mentioned usually influencers, or I guess like social media lives are glorified. Is there a dark truth or something that you don't see behind the camera?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Glorified. Yeah, I mean, with social media, like, yeah, it's just like Instagram where you're probably gonna only put out things that look good or like the highlights of your life, right? So same thing with YouTube. And if you do YouTube and you get a big audience, then you're probably gonna have a big audience on the other platforms too. So yeah, one thing, like you might find yourself curating a lot of things so that things look good. I know I've definitely done this in the past. I still do this, but I don't care nearly as much about like my image or perception now than I did before. So maybe it's actually, at least for me, I think it was good to do social media because then I cared less, but it might also go the other way. I don't know.
Yeah. Another question we have for you is, what are your significant achievements? So like something that you're most proud of during this path of like something.
I think being less frugal was a big one. Like for me, I was so frugal that it was actually not a disease, but like it was like a definitely hindering. So I think that's one of my personal achievements. Let's see. I've also been in a relationship for like almost 6 years, so I think that was a big achievement. And yeah, just like I'm pretty proud of like the business I've built and how I've sort of like separated my time from money. So I'm not like directly trading my time for money anymore.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that is a big thing that like people have to figure out as they go on in their lives.
Yeah.
Talking about this like time, I know like time literally is money in some cases, like especially when you're on like a tight posting schedule. So how much planning goes into your content creation, or like how much time would you say?
Well, yeah, it depends on the video. We basically use a platform called ClickUp to like plan and organize the entire channel. We used to use Notion, which is perfectly good too. Probably a better choice for most people watching this. But you basically have like content calendars, like ideas, scripting in progress, filming, post-production, just like that. Just so that you have a place where you can see everything come together and be better organized. I'm blanking in. What was the question?
Yeah, so like how much planning goes into it? Like roughly in terms of like, is it a super long process? How much like of your day do you have to commit to planning?
Yeah, since the videos on my channel are so different, like I literally have some videos where it's just a bunch of slides and I basically talk over the slides. So those can take a long time to make those slides. But the editing portion is very easy. It's very basic. Other videos, like it's more creative. So we're like designing the shot list. We're sort of writing out the dialogue, planning on where to film and like what types of shots to get. And then the whole editing process is like very complex and intricate. So it definitely does range from like super education where it's just very basic video, but a lot of planning, like the slides and what I'm saying, to more like lifestyle stuff, which is very heavy on the editing, but probably less heavy on like the planning stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll finish off this session with one final question. If you were starting all over again, what would you tell yourself? What would you tell your younger self?
I would tell myself that I should get started like ASAP.
Yeah. Awesome.
Basically today, I don't know what the saying is, but like I think like just get started right now, and then like don't get worried and don't overthink and don't overanalyze. Yeah. Oh, and people aren't thinking about you as much as you're thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
So don't be so self-conscious and stuff like that.